Hey everyone, let's talk about why Bitcoin's price tends to move sideways for periods of times, sometimes weeks, sometimes months. And for example, back about 7 months in 2024, between roughly March through the end of October, Bitcoin spent most of that 7 months between $55,000 and $70,000 in that $15,000 range. Now, there were very short periods where it was above 70. There were very short periods where it was below 55, but it spent the vast majority of those 7 months in that range between $55,000 and $70,000. And let's call it the last month or two, it feels like we've been mostly between $95,000 and $105,000. So why does that happen? Well, a couple reasons. Well, a bunch of reasons, but some of the big ones are, first of all, news events, right? Every single news event is the opportunity for Bitcoin to go up or down based on whether people think that a positive development or a negative development is driving the price of Bitcoin. So for example, Bitcoin a couple different times has gone up based on people thinking that a strategic Bitcoin reserve, meaning that the United States is going to establish a strategic reserve of Bitcoin and potentially buy more Bitcoin, people think that's right around the corner. And when they think that's right around the corner, you see the price of Bitcoin go up. But then you see a press conference where they announce that they are deep in the process of researching it, and you'll see the price of Bitcoin go down, because everybody was hoping that they were going to announce they were establishing a strategic Bitcoin reserve rather than announcing that they were well on their way to studying the strategic Bitcoin reserve. So news items push the price up and down on a daily basis. And in the periods of time where it seems like every good news headline is offset with some other news headline that creates uncertainty, you get these periods of time where the upward motion of the price is offset by a downward motion of the price. Because, again, negative news headlines are canceling out positive news headlines. And even when there's a lot more positive news than negative news, you still get people that are just waiting. They're just waiting for a clear direction of the price before they start buying even more. And again, the best time to buy any asset is when it's not moving up. It's when everyone's bored or everyone's scared, because it means the asset's on sale. But that's not natural human behavior. Human behavior is they want to buy things when it's going up. And so when something's not going up, they tend to hold and want to wait, which again, makes no financial sense, but humans, often just do not act rationally when it comes to buying any type of financial instrument, whether that's stocks or bonds or real estate or anything else. Okay, so you have positive and negative news events. The other thing you have is the fact that Bitcoin or any asset has to adjust to being at a higher price because there are people that want to get on or off the train at that price, and it takes them some time to do that. So think about it like this. You've got a train where, everybody got on at a different price. Some people at $1, $10, $100, $1,000, $10,000, $70,000. Everybody, there's hundreds of millions of people on this train, and they have not given a lot of thought to when they're going to get off this train. So almost nobody who owns Bitcoin is thinking that they know exactly at the point at time at which they're going to do A, B, or C. So as the price of any asset goes up, people start thinking, is this the price I want to get off? Is Bitcoin at $82,000? Or, let's say the 7 months last year, they're like, okay, at $65,000, do I want to, put in a retrofit or whatever, an expansion, what do you call it on your house? Whatever it's called, build an addition, I guess. At $70,000 Bitcoin, do I want to put an addition on my house? Do I want to buy a Tesla? Do I want to go back to get an expensive degree? Like, all of those things are things people are thinking about, but they don't know in advance how they plan to act, and they don't know what they plan to do. And so as the price goes up and down, people are making decisions about, hey, do I want to get off this train with this amount of assets at 65,000? What about 70,000? What about 50,000? What about 55,000? And you just get a lot of people getting on and off anytime there's a big price change. So for example, when the price ran from, let's call it $65,000 at the end of October to $100,000, a month later, that resulted in a significant shakeup in the marketplace as everybody tried to figure out, okay, what do we do with $100,000 Bitcoin? Or let's say Bitcoin between $95,000 and $105,000. So there's a whole bunch of people that have been holding Bitcoin for a whole long time that are now feeling wealthy. And they're trying to think, okay, do I want to build an addition on my house, buy a car, go on a family vacation? At the same time, you have a bunch of people on Wall Street, for example, that are now getting very serious about Bitcoin because it's a much bigger asset class than it used to be. Well, it just takes time for the people on Wall Street to get their finances in order and decide what they're going to buy. It takes time for people who have held Bitcoin for a long time to decide what they, how much of their stack of Bitcoin they want to liquidate at any given price. And it just takes time for that to adjust. So last year, it took about 7 months for everybody to decide, do I want to get off at this station on the train? So I've used the analogy before of a train where everybody's, the train keeps stopping at different, sort of different checkpoints. And it's like, we're at mile marker 55, and then we go to mile marker 70, and then the train backs up to mile marker 60, and then forward to mile marker 65, and then back to mile marker 55. And if you're there for 7 months, while Bitcoin bounces between $55,000 a coin and $70,000 a coin, you're probably thinking, okay, people, make up your mind. Do you want to get on or off this train between mile marker 55 and mile marker 70? You got 15 miles. Make up your mind, because that's effectively what it is. It's like, if every $1,000 of the Bitcoin price is like a mile marker and everybody's got to decide when they're getting on or off the train, then that's exactly what you have. You have people constantly making decisions about, I want to get on or off. And again, it's probably quite frustrating to people like you and me who are thinking, how hard can this be? Do you want to buy or sell Bitcoin between $55,000 or $70,000? Whichever one you want to do, please get it over with so we can keep going on our journey. And the answer is we don't get to dictate what other people do with their time or their money. And so we spent 7 months waiting for everybody who could possibly want to get off the train, below 70 or on the train above 55. Everybody who could possibly want to get on or off, we had to give them time for 7 solid months in 2024 to get on or off the train before we could keep going. So it feels like for the last month or so, we've been kind of in that range where we spent quite a bit of time between $95,000 and $105,000. And every time Bitcoin goes above $100,000, there's someone somewhere saying, you know what? We've been bouncing around in this range for a while now. I'm going to go ahead and pull the trigger and get a little bit of liquidity in US dollars on this Bitcoin that they've held for a long time. At the same time, there's people saying, hey, Bitcoin's been between $95,000 and $100,000 for long enough that I think it's time to go buy some. I don't think it's going to go lower. I think it's going to go higher, and you get people buying it. Again, we just have to be patient while all of those people decide whether they want to get on or off the train between mile marker 95 and mile marker 105. And again, if you're like me, you wish they would just hurry up and make decisions so they could stop wasting the rest of our time and we could just go whichever direction Bitcoin's going to go long term, which I think is up. But again, we don't get to decide for people. And with a million different news headlines every single day and hundreds of millions of people making individual decisions about what is best for them and their family, the rest of us just have to be patient while everybody who wants to get on or off the train between mile marker 95 and mile marker 105 does that. And as soon as everybody's on or off the train, eventually what you get is you run out of sellers. So in order for Bitcoin to go up, everybody who wants to sell below 105, we have to exhaust all of those people. So every time that Bitcoin tries to go up, we have to exhaust all of the people who want to get rid of Bitcoin because they want to do something nice for themselves or their families. We've got to exhaust all of that supply. And that's what happens, and that's what happened in October. Eventually, the people who wanted to sell Bitcoin below $70,000, we ran out of those people. And there were still people that wanted to buy Bitcoin. And when you finally run out of the people that want to sell at any given price level, then what you have is people that want to buy at that price level with nobody to sell to them. And as a result, the price has to rise because the people who want to buy at that price level or anything close to it have to bid up the price in order to buy the Bitcoin, because otherwise the people who are selling it just will not part with it. So that's the way supply and demand works. And again, that's the way supply and demand works for every asset, not unique just to Bitcoin. So what do we do in times like this when the price of Bitcoin seems stuck a bit between 95,000 and 105,000? The answer is you acquire as much Bitcoin as you possibly can, because in my opinion, Bitcoin is still on sale. It's a great investment for the long term, and the marketplace is willing to give you Bitcoin right now at a price of about $96,000 per coin. So in the long term, I think it's going to be a fantastic opportunity to buy Bitcoin at that price. Additionally, Just like I said back in the 7 months of last year, that the day would come when everybody wished they had bought as much Bitcoin as they possibly could between $55,000 and $70,000. And here we are. The price is 50% higher. And everybody who bought Bitcoin between $55,000 and $70,000 is somewhere in the ballpark, depending on which price you bought at, something like 50% up on their investment. Well, 50% is pretty fantastic. In the stock market, you typically have to wait more than 5 years to get anything even remotely close to that, sometimes 10 years to get returns that high. So in the case of Bitcoin, we got that in a matter of months after we had finally exhausted everybody who wanted to get on and off the train between those prices. So in the future, I think the same will be true. In the future, nobody will care whether you bought Bitcoin at $96,000 or $108,000 or $92,000 or $101,000. Nobody will care. What will matter is that you bought at all back in the ballpark of $100,000. Because when the price is $150,000 or $200,000 or $250,000, nobody will care at what price in this ballpark you paid for it. And the same is true in my case. I do not lay in bed at night thinking, wow, how much Bitcoin did I buy at $6,400 versus $9,200 versus $11,300? Because I have bought Bitcoin at all of those prices. The cheapest I ever bought Bitcoin was $6,400. And the most I've ever paid for a Bitcoin is higher than the price today, because every time a paycheck hits, I buy more Bitcoin. So, but again, I don't spend any time thinking, oh no, if only I had bought at $7,000 instead of $10,000. Well, there's a 30% price difference between, $10,000 down to $70,000 is a 30% difference. I don't spend any time worrying about what if. I just wish I had bought way more Bitcoin back then. Even way more Bitcoin at 12,000 or 15,000 or 20,000. Everybody wishes they had bought, more in the past, when the past becomes a number that's much lower than today's price. So be patient, acquire as much Bitcoin as you possibly can, and just be patient. And at some point, the buyers will exhaust the sellers, and the price will go up, because that is the only place it can go when everybody who wants to sell is off the train, and the people who want to buy and get on the train is still growing, because Bitcoin is still only held by about 5% of the world's population. And that means 95% of the people have yet to adopt Bitcoin, which is way more people than already have Bitcoin. So stay safe out there, stay humble, stack as much Bitcoin as you can, and I'm here for anything you need. Thanks, everyone.